Welcome to Karma Chronicles. Please like the video and subscribe. Let's begin.
Rachel was halfway through telling a story at brunch when Mom cut me off mid-sentence to say, "Let Rachel finish, honey." She said it with a smile, like it was polite, but I'd only said 3 words. That was always the pattern. Rachel got the spotlight. I got the scraps. My name's Melissa. I'm 31 years old. I live in Sacramento, California, and I've spent most of my life being the dependable one, the one who knew where everyone's shoes were, who remembered birthdays, who showed up early and stayed late. Rachel. She's 34, lives in LA, and has been the golden girl since birth. She's bubbly, blonde, and thin in that effortless way that somehow gets you free drinks, extra samples at makeup counters, and second chances you didn't earn. When we were kids, she painted murals on her bedroom wall and danced in the school talent show. I made chore charts and meal plans. I once typed up a list of emergency contacts for our babysitter at 9 years old. Quick note, before we get too deep, tell us which country you're watching from. Rachel was the gifted one, the creative one. I was just the one who could be counted on to fix whatever she forgot. In high school, she borrowed my car and returned it with an empty tank and a parking ticket. I paid the fine and didn't even tell our parents. That's how it always went. Even in adulthood, nothing changed. Rachel worked in fashion, PR, constantly posting behind-the-scenes photos from LA galas, like she was on a reality show. I worked operations for a logistics company. Spreadsheets, vendor coordination, warehouse check-ins, behind the scenes, but actually behind the scenes. Then came Ethan Calloway, tall, rich, handsome, wore loafers with no socks, and owned 5 startup patents. When Rachel got engaged to him, my mom acted like she'd secured a seat at the royal table. "He's such a catch," she kept saying, "and his family's so refined. We'll need to make a good impression." And by we, she meant me. Rachel floated the idea of an engagement party. Something small at first. Then suddenly she wanted a vineyard venue, signature cocktails, a live band, the whole 9. And Mom, "Oh, Melissa, you're so organized. You could handle this beautifully. We want them to see we're just as polished." That's how it started. Rachel got the ring, I got the to-do list. So I said yes because I always did. Because "you're so good at this" sounds nice until you realize it's code for "we don't want to deal with it." Within days, I was knee-deep in venue contracts, Pinterest boards, and catering quotes. The whole thing ballooned fast. What started as a simple family event turned into a damn production. We booked a winery outside Santa Barbara with its own event barn, vineyard views, and a $7,500 minimum spend. I ran point on everything: lighting, flowers, table rentals, bar packages. I created color-coded spreadsheets, contacted vendors, took 2 site visits by myself, and drove 5 hours each way because Rachel couldn't get time off. Never mind I didn't have a job at the time, not because I was on vacation, but because I'd just left a toxic work situation that nearly ate me alive. Rachel shrugged and said, "Well, at least now you can give this your full attention." Dad chimed in one night at dinner. "It's a nice gift to your sister. You're so detail-oriented, might as well put it to use." A gift? That's what they called 30-plus unpaid hours a week, gas money, back-to-back Zoom calls with florists, and endless revisions to the guest list. Rachel would drop in every few days with notes. She'd flip through my mood boards like she was reviewing paint samples for someone else's house. "This playlist feels too basic. Can we do a more elegant menu? I hate mushroom risotto. Do we have to invite Aunt Karen? She's kinda weird." The worst part, she never actually picked anything. She just eliminated. No final choices, no confirmations, just "not this" and "try again." And each time she changed her mind, I had to go back and update 3 vendors. By the 3rd week, I had a binder thick enough to kill a rat, and nobody, not Rachel, not Mom, not even Ethan, had said thank you. Not once. One afternoon, I was sitting in my car outside the linen rental place, scarfing down a protein bar because I hadn't eaten all day, when Rachel called. "Can you send me mock-ups of the table setups again? I want to try a different vibe. More coastal chic, less rustic romance." "You already approved the rustic one last week." "Yeah, but it's starting to feel expected, you know? I want it to look effortless." Effortless. That word made me grip the steering wheel so hard my knuckles cracked. I asked, "Do you want to help make calls this time?" Her pause lasted maybe 2 seconds. "This is kind of your thing, Liz. You're good at details. I'm better with the big picture." Click. That was it. No offer to help, no offer to pay me for my time. Just more marching orders from the Golden Girl. And I knew if I pushed back, Mom would say I was being negative or unsupportive. God forbid I act like my time mattered. I started waking up in the middle of the night, mentally checking off to-dos. Did I email the cake decorator? Did the backup DJ confirm? Did I double book valet parking? There was no air left in my day. I didn't read, didn't go out, didn't breathe. I was building someone else's dream day, brick by exhausting brick, and nobody even saw it. Mom would call just to say, make sure it's tasteful. We don't want Ethan's family thinking we're low rent. Like this was all some social test we had to pass, and I was the only one in the exam room. It didn't matter how burned out I felt. If I slipped up, if one flower arrangement looked cheap, or one song played out of order, it would be my fault. But no one was lifting a damn finger to help. I wasn't planning a party anymore. I was carrying a 100-pound show pony on my back while everyone else stood around smiling for the cameras. The next wave hit 4 weeks out, right when I thought I had a handle on everything. That's when Ethan's family decided to get involved. And by get involved, I mean hijack the entire plan. It started with a group email from his mom, Diane, the kind of woman who uses her full signature in every message, with her phone number, her title, and a Bible verse under her name. Subject line, some elegant touches we'd love to see. Some, she wanted crystal glassware instead of the basic set the venue provided, a curated signature cocktail menu, a string quartet for the cocktail hour, and the cherry on top, a $7,000 ice sculpture of their family crest, an actual ice carving of an eagle holding arrows and a key. Nothing flashy, she wrote, just elevated. I remember sitting at my kitchen table, reading that email, feeling like someone had poured cement into my chest. I had 64 tasks open and no room for more, let alone this nonsense. I texted Rachel. Did you see your future mother-in-law's wish list? Are we really doing all this? She replied 10 minutes later. She just wants it to be special. You'll make it work. You always do. I called her. Can we talk about splitting the costs at least? This is getting out of hand. Rachel actually laughed. Melissa, you're better with money stuff. I wouldn't even know where to start. This is your area. Just do what you always do. There it was again, that line. Like I was a human resource, not a person, not her sister. Just some machine she could load up with work until it collapsed. I looked at my bank account that night. I'd burned through over $1,000 on gas alone. Then there was the tasting menu I covered because Rachel forgot her card, the room I booked for the florist, the deposits I put down temporarily until reimbursements came through. They never did. I was bleeding money, time, and energy, and nobody cared. Diane started texting me directly. She wanted to know if we could swap out the ceremony chairs for something more European. I told her that would cost another $2,000. She texted back, shouldn't be a problem if we care about the impression we make. I didn't even answer. At one point, she sent a photo of a candle arrangement she liked from a French bridal magazine and wrote, "Can you source this locally by next week?" Like I had a damn magic wand and a candle importing side hustle. The problem wasn't just the demands. It was how casual they were about dumping them on me. No hesitation, no discussion. Just assumed I'd say yes and make it all happen. Because I always had. I started skipping meals. I'd forget to eat until late at night when I'd grab a protein bar or microwave something and just sit at the counter, too wired to sleep, too tired to think. And still, nobody asked how I was doing. Not once. Rachel called one morning and launched straight into, "So, I'm rethinking the cocktail dress code. Do you think it's too casual to allow jumpsuits?" I interrupted her. "I haven't even locked down the catering yet because your future mother-in-law wants a full oyster bar now." She sighed. "Melissa, you're spiraling. Just breathe. It's not that deep." Not that deep. I hung up. I stared at my phone like it had grown fangs. By that weekend, I was managing 3 inboxes, juggling contracts, rewriting timelines, and drafting a setup plan that would have made a military officer proud. I wasn't her sister anymore. I was her unpaid wedding planner, event coordinator, personal assistant, and emotional punching bag. And if I dropped the ball on anything, you better believe they'd all say I'd overcommitted or took on too much, like I hadn't been shoved into the role from the start. I remember driving home one night after a vendor walkthrough. It was pitch black, and the freeway was quiet except for my headlights cutting through the dark. I had a single thought looping in my head like a broken song lyric. What the hell am I doing this for? And for the first time, I didn't have an answer. I didn't even have time to answer the what the hell am I doing question before the universe threw gasoline on the whole thing. Exactly 2 weeks out, the venue's head chef walked off the job, just quit. I found out through a mass email from the venue coordinator at 6 in the morning. Due to staffing changes, our culinary team will no longer be available for events scheduled this month. We apologize for the inconvenience. Inconvenience. Rachel called 45 minutes later. Full volume, not even a hello. What do you mean the chef quit? What about the shrimp skewers? What about the mushroom puffs? I just found out too, Rachel. This is a disaster. No, it's a staffing issue. A disaster is... Melissa, don't be a bitch. Just fix it. She hung up. I sat there in bed, staring at my phone with my jaw clenched so tight I felt it in my ears. I spent the next 48 hours calling every damn caterer within a 60-mile radius. Most were booked solid. Wedding season peak. I finally found one willing to take it on, but they needed a full menu plan that day to order ingredients, and they were more expensive, of course. Rachel barely skimmed the new options. No seafood, she whined. That's like half the vibe. Seafood costs extra. You want shrimp skewers? That's another $1,200. Well, can't you just work it in? Out of whose pocket, Rachel? I don't know. Figure it out. This is literally your thing. Your thing. I wanted to throw my phone at the wall. I barely finished locking the new menu before the next fire hit. The rental company bailed on half the decor, said they got overbooked and dropped our order. No table runners, no arches, no damn candle stands. I called to ask what the hell happened. The girl on the phone sounded like she was reading a script. Sorry for the inconvenience, ma'am. I wasn't even mad at her. I was mad at everything. Rachel didn't even flinch. She forwarded it to me with one line. Tell me when it's fixed. I told Mom, her first response. Well, just make sure whatever you pick doesn't look cheap. We can't cut corners now. She didn't ask what I needed, didn't offer to help call around, just reminded me not to embarrass the family. I drove 3 hours round trip to pick up replacement pieces from a warehouse in San Jose, paid the rush fee myself, skipped dinner, got home at midnight. No one said a word. Then Diane called me, not texted, called, which she never did, and left a voicemail saying, we need a more elegant seating chart design now that the layout's changing. Something with gold calligraphy. Not printed labels, please. That feels very DIY. Gold calligraphy. I was standing in Target, holding a box of aspirin, listening to her talk like we were planning a royal banquet. I'd barely slept in 3 days. My stomach was shredded from stress and bad coffee. I hadn't even started the new timelines yet, and now I had to redesign the damn seating plan. I called Rachel. Can you take one piece of this off my plate? Just one thing. Handle the seating chart, or call the new caterer with final numbers. She sighed like I was asking her to donate a kidney. I can't. I have a hair trial and a facial tomorrow. This is just how these things go, Melissa. Stressful. That's why people hire professionals. I'm not a professional. I'm your sister. Exactly. So you care. She hung up again. That night, I sat at the kitchen table surrounded by receipts, folders, and crumpled Post-its. My laptop fan was whining. My email count was in the triple digits, and I knew, with a kind of icy, calm certainty, that if I dropped dead tomorrow, the only thing Rachel would ask was whether the replacement centerpieces still matched the new theme. Nobody cared that I hadn't had a day off in 3 weeks. Nobody asked if I needed help. They just kept piling on more pressure, more crap, more perfection, as if holding the illusion together was worth bleeding me dry. And I kept doing it, because that's what I'd always done. I hit the wall a week before the party, not metaphorically, physically. My forehead actually smacked the cabinet door because I was so tired I forgot it was open. 16-hour days had become normal, juggling final confirmations, backup vendors, and the endless flow of urgent texts from Rachel and Diane. My phone was a grenade I couldn't put down. That Monday morning, I called Mom. Can you help manage RSVPs, or at least hand out the new timelines at dinner? She hesitated. Oh, honey, I'm not good with details. You know that. I almost dropped the phone. I've sent you color-coded lists. All you have to do is email the people who haven't responded. I'd just mess it up, she said lightly. You're better at this. Better at this. That phrase had started to taste like blood in my mouth. Later that day, Rachel blew up over her dress fitting. She called while I was printing signage at Staples. Why would you book my fitting today? Today's stressful. You sent me your availability, Rachel. This is the only slot your tailor had. I shouldn't have to think of everything. You're supposed to manage the stress, not add to it. I stared at the stack of signs sliding out of the printer. Welcome to the Callaway White engagement in perfect serif fonts, and felt my fingers curl around the edge until the paper crumpled. I stayed up that night until 3 a.m., reprinting signage after Rachel changed the tagline, stuffing emergency kits for the bridal party, and triple-checking setup lists. My eyes burned. My hands smelled like Sharpie ink. No one saw any of it. The night before the event, we had a family dinner at a little Italian place downtown. I showed up late, still in jeans with ink smudges on my fingers, because I'd been at the venue finalizing the seating chart. Everyone else looked polished. Rachel in a cream dress, Mom glowing with excitement, Ethan's parents sipping wine like royalty. Halfway through the meal, Rachel stood up with her glass. I just want to thank everyone, she said, smiling wide. My bridesmaids for being amazing, Ethan for being my rock, our families for their support, and especially Diane for helping with the special touches. Applause, glasses clinking. My name didn't leave her lips. I sat there with my napkin balled in my fist. My pulse thudded in my ears. She didn't even glance at me. Not one thank you, not one nod, nothing. When she sat down, Ethan leaned over to kiss her cheek, and Mom wiped a tear from her eye. I pushed my chair back, the legs scraping the tile loud enough to make heads turn. Bathroom, I muttered, and walked out. Outside, the air was cold and smelled like car exhaust. I leaned against the brick wall, breathing hard, staring at the glowing sign of the restaurant. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped my phone twice trying to unlock it. I didn't cry, I didn't yell, I just stood there, empty, knowing something inside me had finally snapped. I couldn't go back to that table without wanting to flip it. So I didn't. I walked to my car, climbed in, and sat behind the wheel, gripping it so tight my knuckles turned white. The sound of their laughter drifted out when the door opened for a new customer. It was like listening to a party I wasn't invited to, except I had built the damn party. And for the first time in my life, I didn't want to fix it. I wanted out. I didn't drive home after that dinner. I drove to the hotel parking lot where I was supposed to stay the night before the event. The same hotel where the bridesmaids had their room block, where Rachel's dress was steamed and hanging, where all the day of schedules were set to kick off at 7 a.m. I parked, turned off the engine, and sat there. The exhaustion didn't even feel physical anymore. It was deeper, like something inside me had gone quiet. I scrolled through my inbox. Every detail was already in place. Vendor arrival times, setup map, playlist handoff, backup signage, catering contacts, bar logistics, all of it. So I forwarded everything. First to Rachel's best friend, Alyssa, then to Mom. Subject line, engagement party details, final. I attached the PDFs, calendar, and contact list. Then I typed out the text. Emergency came up. Everything's organized. I won't be there tomorrow. I hit send, turned off notifications. That was it. At 5:30 a.m., while the rest of them were waking up to get their hair curled and mimosas poured, I was walking through TSA with nothing but a backpack and a round-trip ticket I bought at midnight. Costa Rica. It was the same fund I'd set aside for job hunting, the responsible money, the wait-and-see savings. I used every dollar of it. I landed before noon, found a little beach cafe where no one knew me, ordered fresh pineapple juice, and took off my shoes. The air smelled like salt and fruit. There were no spreadsheets, no texts, no one asking for anything. I watched the waves hit the sand and didn't think about Rachel or Diane or Mom or the party. I let it all burn. Back home, things fell apart fast. Alyssa tried, but she wasn't me. She didn't know the plan like I did. Vendors called asking where to unload. The string quartet was late. The signature cocktail signs got printed in the wrong font. Staff were underdirected, lighting got mixed up, and the seating chart, the one I'd rebuilt from scratch, was nowhere to be found. Mom apparently had a meltdown when the ice sculpture showed up on the wrong side of the terrace. Diane made a snide comment loud enough for everyone to hear. Rachel. She kept it together for the first hour, then lost it when the AV team didn't have the playlist cued for the toast. The mic cut out. The champagne flutes weren't evenly set. The candles blew out. I didn't get the play-by-play until days later, but that night, while they scrambled and stressed and whispered behind napkins, I sat on the sand with no shoes and a cheap cocktail, listening to the ocean. And I didn't feel bad, not even for a second. On the third morning in Costa Rica, I finally turned my phone back on. It blew up like a slot machine. Mom's texts were frantic, stacked one after another. Where are you? Vendors are confused. I don't have the seating chart. Rachel's were straight fire. You completely ruined my big day. Do you have any idea what you've done? You're selfish beyond belief. And then Diane's single gem. Very disappointed. I expected more from you. I scrolled through them while sipping a smoothie made from fruit I couldn't even name. Warm breeze, sun on my shoulders. It felt like I was reading someone else's nightmare. I didn't reply. Instead, I strapped on my hiking shoes and followed a narrow trail through the rainforest. The sound of waterfalls drowned out the phantom buzz of my phone. My body finally stopped clenching. My head cleared. For the first time in months, I felt like myself again. I spent those 3 days doing nothing that had to be done. Reading paperbacks under a palm tree, eating slow meals, swimming in water the color of glass. No demands, no lists, no one calling me better at this. When I flew home, the silence hit me before I even got my bag. Nobody was at the airport. Back at the house, Mom barely looked up from her laptop. Rachel's car wasn't in the driveway. Dad came into the kitchen while I was unpacking. He didn't yell, but his voice had that heavy, quiet edge. You humiliated the family, Melissa. Do you understand that? I shut the suitcase. No, I saved myself. There's a difference. He shook his head and walked out. No one asked about my trip. No one even asked if I'd eaten. At dinner the next night, Rachel sat at the opposite end of the table, picking at her salad. Ethan wasn't there. No eye contact. No thank you. Just silence so cold it felt like a draft. I didn't feel it. They could keep their icy treatment. I'd survived worse. 6 months later, the engagement quietly dissolved. No big announcement. Just Rachel showing up at Mom's house one afternoon without the ring. She mumbled something about stress, how everything changed after the party. Mom clucked and hugged her. Dad poured wine. I stood at the counter cutting limes and didn't say a word, because I already knew the truth. The cracks had been there long before I walked away. All I'd done was stop holding the walls up for her. Mom started in on me a week after Rachel's breakup. She cornered me at the kitchen sink while I was rinsing coffee cups. If you'd just stayed, maybe it all wouldn't have fallen apart, she said, voice low but loaded. I set the mug down hard enough to splash water. You're kidding, right? You watched me drown for months and didn't throw me a rope. That's not fair. No, Mom. What's not fair is acting like my absence caused the mess. The mess was already there. I just stopped hiding it for you. She pressed her lips together, but for once she didn't answer. After that, I got clear. Every time a favor popped up, I said the same line. I'm not available. They tried the guilt. Family comes first. It's just a small thing. Don't make this about you. Didn't matter. I'm not available. I'd repeat, calm and final. Dad's 60th rolled around that spring. Mom called 2 months ahead. We're thinking of a big party at the country club. Could you help coordinate? No, I said. A pause. You're busy. I'm not available. Instead, I packed my car and drove to Montana. Mountains, empty roads, my own playlist blasting. No itineraries, no centerpieces. No RSVPs. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't being used as a safety net. Rachel had to fend for herself. She moved apartments that summer and called me in tears because the movers were late. I can't believe this is happening. I have to be out by 5 and they're not here. That's rough, I said. Melissa, can you come help? I'm not available. And I hung up. I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. Bit by bit, things shifted. Family events got smaller. The chaos shrank without me to sponge it up. Birthdays became potlucks instead of catered affairs. Holiday dinners were at restaurants, no seating charts. If no one wanted to do the work, no one got the luxury. At first, they whispered about me. I heard Dad once say to Mom, she's being selfish. But then reality sank in. Rachel stopped calling for every little thing. Mom started keeping her own lists. Dad learned how to book his own flights. One night at dinner, just us, no guests, no big occasion, Rachel put down her fork and looked straight at me. I didn't realize how much you handled, she said quietly. It wasn't dramatic. No tears, no music swelling in the background. Just a single sentence across the table, heavy with something like regret. I nodded once. Yeah. That was it. No apology. But it was something. I could see her hands trembling a little as she picked up her glass. For the first time, she looked older to me. not the golden girl, just a woman realizing the world doesn't come with a built-in assistant. After that, I went home and made tea, sat on my couch, and thought about how long it had taken to reach this point. It wasn't a victory lap. It wasn't revenge. It was balance finally, like a scale settling after years of tipping one way. And I didn't have to explain it to anyone. I just kept saying, I'm not available. And they learned. Not long after that dinner, things started shifting in my actual life, not just with family. I landed a job as operations lead at a mid-sized manufacturing firm in Sacramento. Good pay, clean systems, no one dumping extra work on me just because I could handle it. I had my own office, my own whiteboard. People scheduled time with me instead of barging in like their chaos was my emergency. It felt like breathing with both lungs for the first time in years. On the side, I started offering paid event consulting. Just small stuff at first. Timelines, vendor wrangling, logistics plans. Turns out, people will gladly pay for calm and coordination, especially when they've been burned by flakes and drama. One of my first real clients, Jessica, Rachel's old college friend, she called and said, "You kept that train wreck of an engagement party from falling apart. I still don't know how you did it." She didn't ask for a favor. She offered my full market rate upfront, even sent a deposit before we met. After her wedding, she wrote a review that said, "Melissa made things work without needing credit or control. She's the person you want when everything matters." That hit me in the chest in a way I didn't expect. I screenshotted it and saved it in a folder called Worth It. Meanwhile, I kept my boundaries sharp. No more unpaid work, no more guilt-driven yeses. If mom tried to ask, I kept it simple. Hire someone. If Rachel hinted, I shut it down with, "You've got this." Family events stayed small. If no one wanted to organize, we didn't throw them. No one stepped up. No event, no stress, no savior. 2 years later, they finally got it. I wasn't the fixer anymore. I wasn't the fallback. Rachel once asked if I missed being in the middle of everything. No, I said. I like being at peace. Helping is kind. Being used isn't. And sometimes the only way people learn that is when you stop being the one who always shows up to fix it.